This conference will now be recorded.
All right, so this is Peter Hammond, Chair of the CDA. I'm calling this meeting to order. It is now 5:36. First item, Rebecca, would you do a roll call for CDA attendance?
Yes. Mike Dawson.
Here.
Dusty Lorino.
Oh dear.
Muted. I can see him. He might just be muted.
Can you hear me?
There,
Yes. Yep. We're just doing roll call. Dusty Lorino.
I'm here.
Peter Hammond.
Here.
John Kraus.
Here.
Joe Lesage.
Here.
Trustee Amenta.
I don't think she can hear you yet.
Trustee Amenta, we're just doing roll call.
Oh, is she in?
I see her on the
I think
screen.
she's muted. I had the same issue when I tried to sign on. My phone didn't connect the first time.
Okay. Let's see here. Trustee Amenta.
Her mic is muted.
Yeah, I keep trying to unmute her. Trustee Amenta?
I just got the audio on, so.
Oh, okay.
Just
We're just doing roll call. And your name was next, so you're right on time.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. And Trustee Warren.
Present.
Great.
All righty. Thank you. So this is Peter Hammond again. So staff kindly sent us sort of an outline. This is obviously a new format for us, and we continue to learn and figure this out. So we've got a few items we'll cover in the beginning, and then we'll move into the matters for the CDA. So this is a teleconference meeting of the CDA. I'll lead it. We will address the items for consideration. All the CDA members will have a chance to speak. And then we will look to take motions and provide discussion and move on with each item. Before we get started, we'd like to go through just to understand who is on the call. And then when we get into the formal business, we will be muting sort of the public participation lines so the CDA can conduct their discussion and go from there. So to start, can we go through the members of the village staff that are on the call?
Rebecca Ewald, Village Manager.
Mark Emanuelson, Finance Director.
Bart Griepentrog, Planning Director.
Excellent. Are there any members of the press on the call? Okay. And then one other item, we have item D for all of us. We did ask to facilitate the call that if there were any questions from the public to send them in writing prior. Rebecca, do you know, did we receive any questions from the public?
I have not received any questions or comments since the release of the agenda.
Okay. Then with that, would you move to put the public participation on mute?
Yes.
And then, as the rest of us know, as we go through this discussion, it's best if we all mute our lines if we're not speaking to avoid feedback. So we'll do that, and then we'll just remind each other as we start talking and are still muted when it's our time to speak, that everybody can remind us to take it off of mute, because I've done that several times already. Yes. All right, and then just so everybody's aware and the public that listening in, the way we're going to go through this, we'll open each agenda item for consideration. I will go around and ask each CDA member to speak on the issue at hand, and during their time, if they have any questions for staff, to address them then after everybody has spoken. We will look to make a motion on the item for consideration. And if there is such a will, we will take the motion in second and see if there's approval of that item, and then move on to the next item. As I have it, there are, I believe, three material items to cover tonight. First item is consideration of the Emergency Business Assistance Program. And then 2 items associated with the MOU between the village and CDA to amend those 2 to allow us to repurpose the facade program funds and the portion of the general administrative funds for purposes of this program. So with that, we'll move into the first item of consideration, Emergency Business Assistance Program. We have obviously considered this before and put it in front of the village board. The village board considered it a week and a half ago, had a very good discussion on it, had a number of questions and comments, and requested that it come back to the CDA for further consideration. Staff did a great job, I would say, of incorporating some of the CDA comments that occurred during our meeting, as well as the village board's comments during their meeting. I think we have a better design program than originally we put forward. And so I think it's actionable, it's efficient, I think it's administratively feasible. I think those are some of the key things we had heard from both of the bodies. So with that, again, if everybody else is on mute, I will just go around the room and call on each member to provide their comments or questions on the program. So with that, I'll start with Mike Dawson. If you want to go ahead and give your comments, Mike.
Sure, be glad to, because I certainly support the overall revised proposal that has been provided for financial assistance for our Shorewood businesses that have been closed by state order. And I thought that the changes that were developed through further discussion with all concerned people made it an even better proposal, and I support the proposed types of businesses that now will be deemed eligible. And I think there is a really good proposed structure for rolling out this new program.
Excellent. Thank you, Mike. Next, I would ask Trustee Amenta for her comments or question and/or question. I think you're on mute.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thanks. In terms of the eligible businesses, so number 4 identifies businesses that are eligible, and 5 says businesses that are ineligible. What about businesses that are not specified in either of those categories?
This is Peter, and then I would also ask staff to respond. I would say for those applications where the bid director and village staff are uncertain as to whether they fall into those would go to the CDA for consideration in the final step before the I would say the final determination of the businesses to participate.
Because normally, like with the conditional use permits, when we consider those, there's like a list of, Bart can elaborate, but there's a list of like, these businesses need to get a CUP. Like there's there's definition of like, this you do, this is a yes, this is a no, and if it's nowhere on either of these things, then it's a no. You know what I'm saying? Rather than just having a bunch of things that are not specified. So I think it would be clearer for everybody if, you know, we were more specific about it. Okay, just my own personal opinion, dentists, my feeling about the whole thing is that businesses that are well capitalized, I would rather not spend scarce funds. I would rather spend our funds on those businesses that are not running on a margin. So the sole proprietor hairstylist, you know, who the sole proprietor, small retail, probably don't have much of a capital, much of a cushion, or much of a capital. I think the dentist's office, I don't know, I just see them in a category of probably have funds to get them through a month or two. Mental health counselors, psychiatrists, you can do that online, you know. Again, it's someone I'm not sure who needs. I'd rather give the help to those businesses that really need the help, particularly the small micro businesses. So that was my comment about that one. For saying that we encourage women and minority-owned businesses to apply, I would like to see some way that they get extra points. So there's actually some. So we're actually, you know, creating some kind of a preference system, and you know, just to say we encourage it's nice, but it's not really going to be helpful. I noticed the Wauwatosa and most of the other programs that are similar to this are forgivable loans. So if the business is still there in 6 months, the loan is forgiven. I mean, you know, Blues Egg, if you have a situation like Blues where they're closing, I mean, I just, I don't want, I think there have been criticisms in the past of granting money and then not getting, obviously we want to grant money and be able to get the benefit of it. So I think it would be better to structure this as a forgivable loan. And if the business is still there in 6 months, you know, whatever. I'm a little confused about because
can you clarify that, what that means? If they're there in 6 months, it's forgiven, or if they're there in 6 months, they have to pay?
No. If they
go under, that it's forgiven basically anyways, because they're not a business anymore. If they go under and they're not there in 6 months, they're not going to repay it anyways, right?
Yeah, I mean, unless there's some, I mean.
You want people to sign personally on the loan on top of as a business? That's what, I mean, otherwise it doesn't, the same difference.
With the loans, like Kensington Liquor, I mean, there have been loans that we've had personal, like people put up collateral for it. I'm not necessarily suggesting that, but I'm suggesting that even though you're right, if they go bankrupt or they leave town or whatever, there probably isn't anything we could do. But I mean, at least it would be like set up as, you know, if you decide to move your operation to North Avenue or Brady Street or Cedarburg or something, you should there should be some obligation that you are paying back Shorewood for this investment. So that's just my feeling about it. Okay, so the prior program was all going to be administered by the bid director and the finance director. That's no longer the case. I don't quite understand. It seems like there's CDA approval in here, and I don't quite understand when and how that's going to happen. So can someone explain that to me, the process?
Mark, would you mind? I can probably provide it too, but maybe Mark can provide it and then I can add any comments to his.
Sure. The way I believe the document is written will be that the CDA is still responsible for the program. It's not, we're not transferring money to the bid and then having them do it. That would be like an alternate option. We're not doing that. And that's, again, based on some of the feedback that we collected in the last 2 weeks. But the CDA would designate that the bid director would be the source point of contact for all the applications and application materials. They would then do a initial review. I did include a new application form and approval form in my materials. I believe those made it to your packets as well.
Yes.
So the bid director then would indicate if they clearly meet the program criteria, if they don't meet the program criteria, or are unsure, and then would refer it for CDA to make clarification on, again, exactly whatever criteria is in question and do they meet it or do they not. Then I would get all the materials as the finance director for the village. I would do an additional review. I would also do the review for good standing of with the village and make sure people aren't delinquent in taxes. And I would put my mark then, again, if I concur, disagree, or am unclear as to the eligible criteria. We are going to keep a running list of applications received. Once I've had an opportunity to review that after the bid directors reviewed it, then the whole list gets prepared for the CDA to review any items that are unclear and then to ultimately approve the grants that were submitted, subject to, of course, we talk about potential proration if we have more grants and funds available at the time that we're ready to issue the grants to our businesses. So that's kind of my perspective on how we hope this process will work, and hopefully it will be fairly efficient. Again, the bid director and myself would hopefully do the mountain lion's share of the review, and then the CDA would be able to respond to those things we're unclear about if the applicant met the criteria, and then subsequently then they would approve the grant disbursements.
All right, so CDA is approving.
Yes,
okay.
and actually just one other clarification, just because it came up from the board as well as, again, in terms of the oversight, because the village board had asked about oversight, it is the CDA chair, myself, and then a designate from the village board, or excuse me, where's that language? Shoot, I just lost it, sorry. I think it's a designate from the board or CDA person. So there are two people, official people overseeing the program.
Okay, my last concern has to do with the PPP program and the limited availability of that. And I did talk to one bid board member, business owner, who told me that sole proprietorships were not even able to put in an application until recently, and we know now the funds, at least the initial tranche, are almost all gone, and we don't know if there's going to be any. So I guess I would like to see some recognition. I mean, again, the big fish have accountants and attorneys and relationships with bankers and got in there first and are getting substantial relief from the federal program. Our micro businesses, our woman-owned businesses, our minority-owned businesses are most likely not in that group. And I feel that now I know that someone may have applied and not been approved or not gotten the funding yet, but I feel like if there's a business that has been able to take advantage of that federal program that is for essentially the same purpose. I know it's more paying wages than paying rent, but we do have limited funds, and I would like to see the program incorporate some recognition of that program, besides just asking, do you intend to apply for it? But I guess what I'm saying is if someone has applied and received money from that program, I think they should be ineligible for this one. If someone has applied and not yet heard, then I guess we could make it as I would hope all of them be forgivable loans, and then call the loan back if they end up getting the federal money. But I would not like this program to duplicate the federal program, just because there's been inequities already in how that federal money has been dispersed. So those were my comments.
Thank you for that. And I appreciate your detailed review of the program. All right, let's next. Can I go to Trustee Warren?
Sure. Let me see if I can get all my technology working here. Can you hear me? Can you see me?
Yeah.
I can hear you. I can't see
Okay.
you, but I think that's my technology.
All right. All right. Just a warning: the sun goes directly in my eye, so if I go off camera, it's because I've been blasted by sun. But couple things. I really like the revisions that have been made to the proposal. I think they're good revisions. A lot of things that were at least important to me, I see reflected in these revisions. You see more structure around the program, more oversight. It really spells out a lot of the things that need to be done, and I think it's more kind of a soup to nuts description of how this program will function. With that being said, just a couple of things, and some of them mirror some of the comments that Trustee Amenta just made before me. Starting with the first comment, eligibility section 5, I think it's probably good to make clear. We could go one way or another here, and I think we need to make clear which way we're going. Either stuff that's not mentioned goes to the CDA for review, or if you're not mentioned, you're out of the program and you're ineligible. I just think that clarity is important here. Thinking about some of the other things that were mentioned, if the event of business moves, or in the event that a business has rent reimbursed through some other mechanism that would be duplicative of this program, perhaps instead of restructuring the program and kind of rewriting the document, we could do something as simple as a reservation of rights. Something like in the event a business voluntarily relocates outside of Shorewood, or a business is reimbursed for their rent, to the extent that the CDA Business Assistance Grant Program has supplied such rent, such business shall reimburse Shorewood back those funds. That's obviously not eloquently stated right now, right this second off the cuff, but maybe instead of restructuring the whole program, we can just submit a reservation of rights section and address the same concerns. Outside of that, I think I certainly support the program. I think that the revisions are very good, and I look forward to the remainder of the discussion tonight.
Trustee Warren, this is Peter Hammond. Just on your first eligibility question in the, and I apologize, under the program administration, second to last paragraph, it says, in the event that an application is not determined to be eligible for program funding by either the bid director or the finance director of the village, those applications will be subject to an additional review for final eligibility determination by the CDA prior to the CDA's approval of the grant funding disbursements. Is that not sufficient to your question?
No, I think you're right. I think that ties closely, and I think that'll do it. I mean, the question would be then ultimately whether we want to go through that review every time, or we just want to say if you're not within these parameters, you're out. I guess I'm okay with the review process, but yeah, you're right. Those two do tie. Just when I was reading the document, I didn't necessarily glue them together myself.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay, I lost my list of people who talk. Let's go to Howard Deskey.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I think the program is well thought out. The fact that there may be a gray area shouldn't exclude those businesses that might need or be interested in applying, and those applications. It looks like Steph is going to be monitoring or reviewing those applications or discussing the program with eligible or potentially eligible businesses. So I think when the bid director submits those applications, all of the reviews will have been in place, and if it is a gray area, I guess they're going to be the ones that are going to be helping that business and helping guide them and filling out the application. And then the final decision for that grant is going to be all within the guidelines that have been established. So I think it covers pretty much everybody, even businesses that might be in that gray area. Without having financial statements or requiring financial statements, it's pretty difficult to exclude people just because of what their background is or what their business is, what their business model is. They could be carrying a lot of debt despite the amount of income that they have the potential of generating. So other than that, I think it's fine. I think it's well done.
Okay, thank you, Dusty. Yeah, I think that's a good point. This, the question of eligibility. The CDA worked through that in our meeting. The village board was trying to work through that in their meeting, and I think staff did a good job of an elegant and eloquent solution that, this is, this is the, who's been impacted by this. And obviously many businesses at different levels have been impacted, and certainly some of the larger businesses from a financial perspective may be impacted more, again, from a dollar perspective, but they all been. So again, that I agree, that is a challenging part of this, and I think staff did a good job of trying to address that portion of it. All right, how about Joe? You're looking at me right in the middle of the screen. How about why don't you give us your thoughts?
Sorry, I'm on speakerphone. I thought that the group did a great job taking into account the comments of the businesses and stuff, and I was swayed by some of those comments, including the curves one was good. I think the knee-jerk reaction was for everyone to help out the bars and restaurants and their pet projects, and I think that it was in a thoughtful process, and I'm happy with where it ended up. At the end of the day, I get everyone's concerns about how it's being administered and making sure it gets to the right people. I see it being difficult to police that, and as Dusty pointed out, and there's different circumstances with everyone. I don't know, and without being charged with bias and picking favorites, which I'm always conscious of as when we give these monies out. I don't know how you can actually do that. At the end of the day, I take more of a high level approach to it. I think that if this was money, it was meant for the facades of the village. This is as good or better of a use of that money. It stays in the village. Part of running a successful village or business is attracting tenants, but also retaining them. And if this helps us retain them, that's as good as attracting them. And I'm really in favor of it. I think it's the right thing to do. So, my 2 cents.
Excellent. Thank you, Joe. And then John Kraus, you are on the phone, I believe, correct? So your comments?
Yeah, I'm on the phone. Thank you. Yeah, I would say, thanks to everyone who put in so much work on this. I think everyone did a great job under a time crunch here to put together a program that is simple enough to get done quickly, but organized enough to have some effect. So while I agree with a number of comments by Trustee Menta and a couple other people on the call about kind of like what Joe was just saying, oversight, and there probably are a lot of things we could be doing, but I just don't see us having the time or the resources to get all those ideas flushed out and incorporated into this program so that it could be implemented quickly, quickly and efficiently, and really get it out there and do what it's supposed to be doing. So I'm in favor of the program as it's written, and I think that, to hear Joe's comment, I think this is exactly a good use of these funds. Keep it in the village. It was meant to help businesses, and I think at the end of the day, this will be a good thing. And there might be some leaky stuff out there that happens, but that's going to happen. So I think in this time, what we're dealing with, this is the best we can put together at the moment. So I don't really have any questions about the program. I think it's pretty well fleshed out. So I think that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, John. Okay, I believe that is everybody. Thank you all for your comments.
Peter, I had one more thing to say.
Yeah.
The eligibility and the limits, and it talks about paying for rent or equivalent costs. I guess I might be answering my own question here, but I just want to make sure that we're not excluding somebody that owns their property, because they're going to have business expenses that they need covered, whether it's rent or mortgage payment or taxes. And I see that we've got that covered as operating expenses. So I think we're good. I guess I answered my own question. Sorry.
No problem.
Can I ask something? Can I ask something?
Yes, please.
On the application form, am I missing it? I don't see anything that says where a business would identify themselves as a WBE or MBE. Is it on there that I just haven't seen it?
No, that's not on, but I can certainly add that for a final draft.
Yep. Good point. Thank you for clarifying that. Okay. With everybody spoken, do I have a motion to approve the emergency assistance program as currently written?
I'll make a motion.
All right, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
This is John. I'll second that.
Okay. Just to, any other discussion from any of the CDA members before we, Dan, I believe we'll do a roll call vote, right, Rebecca? Okay.
Well, I would.
Sorry, what?
Well, I guess.
John, we're losing you.
I
can't hear you.
Is that John?
No, that's not me.
Oh, was that Wesley?
Yeah, and I guess I would just say I guess I'd move to amend, and maybe this will, and I move to amend to add a statement under program administration that in the event of. Hello?
This is Mike. I just disconnected myself, so I'm back in.
Okay, that's Mike.
Sorry.
Yeah, I guess I was just saying I am supportive of the program, but I do think I do want to make it clear, so I move to amend. I move to amend to add in the administration section a clause stating that in the event of business voluntarily move for 6 months of the grant.
Hey, Wesley, could you hold on for just 1 second? Is everybody's line muted? Because I'm getting a lot of feedback. I can't quite hear what Trustee Warren's saying. So if everybody can mute and then, okay, Wesley, try and go now.
All right, everyone ready?
Yep. All right, I think it might be your phone. I don't know, but we'll see.
It's like the most complicated amendment I've ever tried to add. I move to amend. I do support the program, but I'd like to make a small tweak. So I'd say I move to amend by adding in the program administration section that in the event that this voluntarily moves out of Shorewood within 6 months of the grant or receives reimbursement for rent duplicative to what's provided by this program, such business will reimburse Shorewood for the grant.
I'll second that.
Could someone from staff just read that back to us so I make sure I heard it correctly?
I'll give it a shot. So I have move to amend the program to add a statement under program administration that states, in the event a business voluntarily moves out of Shorewood within 6 months or receives reimbursement of rent duplicative of the program, such business would reimburse for the grant.
Okay, so I have and someone's going to have to help me with Robert's rules here. So I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on that item?
I don't know that I like the I don't mind a reimbursement if they voluntarily move. But if there's duplications in some of these programs, met the needs for the two programs. PPP comes to mind, and the Small Business Administration loans come to mind. Some of them are not. So I don't know we would punish eligible businesses for accepting the grants that are available to them at this time. Sort of
I would like to be recorded that way too. I think that's Dusty that was speaking.
Yes.
And our program is not going to cover all their costs. And if they can find other programs that support their business, I mean, so be it. I strongly object to that curtailing their finding other sources of revenue.
And I think, can I just one maybe it's a helpful clarification for the CDA. The original program that was put in front of the CDA was specifically for rent assistance. That is no longer the program. We are using the rent dollars to determine how much a business gets, but they are allowed to use that money for whatever they determine is appropriate use to keep their business functioning. We are not monitoring them with respect to using it for payment of rent or anything. You know, businesses know how they need to use the money, where the best use is. So again, that's a critical difference here from this version from the original version. So you know, if they do get rent assistance, I think that's, to Dusty's point, I think that's fine and that's great, but they obviously have other expenses, and that's why this program is designed not just narrowly for the rent component, but for basically the business expenses that they have.
Good.
Are there any other discussion items?
Can I ask a question on under limits? It says grants will be limited to and based upon up to 2 months of eligible rental or rental equivalent costs, up to $5,000 per month. So does that mean the limit is 5,000 or is it 10,000? Because it's 2 months up to 5,000 per month.
10,000. 10,000 total.
You know, again, I have to say, I mean, the reason I seconded Wes's motion is because, I mean, now that's a difference from, wasn't it just 5,000 the last go round?
No, I'm pretty sure that was written the same way in the first.
Oh, it was 10,000?
Yeah, it was 10 total.
So, I mean, again, you know, it's giving more, you know, I think this I just feel like from my talking to people and my understanding, it's the smaller businesses, the sole locations, and that are having a harder time accessing the federal money. And you know, this also now is, you know, again, is going to benefit businesses with the larger businesses that I think are generally better capitalized. So anyway, I support Wes's amendment.
And I guess the other, well, I'm sorry, does anybody else have any comments? Or
Can I quickly jump in?
Yes.
And I fully understand that the program is kind of a little bit more nebulous in terms of kind of business assistance. I do understand that we do not, and I totally agree with the point, we don't want to discourage businesses from applying some other assistance. You know, my motion was made kind of in recognition of the fact that this is in fact a limited pool of money, and we want to get it to the businesses that are most needful of that money. So that's why I'm trying to maybe solve the problem before it starts, where you have this limited pool of money that the village can provide, and you want to make sure that people get as much as they need. So that's why I've made the motion that I have. You know, I certainly do not want to discourage people from going to other funding sources, but I also want to make sure that the money gets in the right hands.
But I feel like your motion does prevent people from going to other funding sources or dealing with just us.
Okay, and then one other, if we're still in discussion, other question, comment on the if you move out within 6 months, you know, I had thought about that as well, but you know, I don't know how we enforce that. I mean, I guess we can, you know, we could certainly put it in there, but you know, how do we know what's going to happen? How do we enforce it? How do we do that? I don't know how we would do that, I guess. I mean, and if the business, you know, again, if a business, you know, there could be instances where, you know, I don't know. I mean, a business needs to, you know, there's so many different, that's the challenge with this. There's so many different circumstances that can come up, and to paint a blanket statements like those create challenges. So to me, the big challenge was, gotcha, Joe, was, you know, how do you do that? I don't know how we monitor or enforce that. So I'm sorry, Joe, you had a comment? Oh, you might be on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I agree with the sentiment that you're bringing up. I just think from a practicality standpoint, we're not going to find out if they got other grants. Once it goes into their bank account, there's no way to say what they sent that segregated fund on. It just gets all mixed together. If they do move in 6 months, I get it. But in legal fees, just to try to get the money back from them, it won't even be worth. I mean, I've been through plenty of legal battles. It's not worth the attorney's time to do it. And I get what you're trying to get at. I think it's impractical, just to be honest.
Can I just make one final point? You know, if there's one thing that as board members and as CDA that we've had to deal with in terms of criticism from the public, it's empty storefronts. Why are these storefronts empty? Why have they been empty for so long? You know, and a lot of times there's not anything we can do about it. You know, if there's not a business or if the rent's too high, there's not much we can do about it. But I think we have to, you know, look forward a little bit and say, okay, a business, especially one that's on a storefront, leaves and we have another empty storefront, and then people saying, but we gave tax dollars to them and now we have, you know, so I mean, I think part of the difference between, and I've said this before at CDA, is that Wes and I here, you know, we're more of a public seat, so we kind of get the rotten tomatoes thrown at us a little more than other CDA members do. And,
yes, that is a good point.
And I think that, you know, some of our conservatism about giving some of these grants to businesses that may not be there in 6 months or may have access to other, maybe duplicating other access to capital that they have. You know, I think it reflects a little bit that, you know, we are, the village residents are going to be, I mean, the village residents are saying, well, you're helping the businesses, village, what are you going to do to help me pay my rent? You know, so I mean, I do think we need to be sensitive to, you know, what some of the criticisms have been. And that's, I think that's kind of where we're coming from on this, or at least where I won't speak for us, where I'm coming.
Thank you for that.
Can I Can I say one more thing? I
Yes.
certainly do understand both the point and counterpoint here. And it sounds like this motion doesn't have enough support to pass on this level, and I understand that. But I also think that there is some, I'm wondering if it makes sense to withdraw the motion so I can make another motion around, it sounds like we might be able to come to some consensus around movement. Or I think I could word it in a way that could bring us to consensus there. So is there a parliamentary way for me to withdraw my motion, in light of the fact that I think I'm just going to fail and resubmit it as something else?
I believe that you withdraw it. I still have I still have on record, and Bart, I don't know if your notes match, but I had that a motion was out there, motion by Dusty, seconded by John, and then that there was no action. And then Wesley, I had you amend the motion. And then David, a seconded wanting to do an amendment.
So we're addressing the amendment first, I believe, correct? And then still going back to the original motion?
Correct. So it would be helpful for you if you withdrew your amendment, Wesley.
Okay, Peter, as chair, can I withdraw my amendment and make a different amendment?
Yes. I feel like Trump. I have complete authority. I have complete authority. Yes, you may.
In light of our discussion, I think it makes sense for me to withdraw my amendment, so I'm withdrawing my amendment. But I'd also like to move that and Peter, this is in recognition of what you said about there being a lot of circumstances that lead to movement. I get that, and I don't want to be overly punitive. So I move to amend by adding a section to the administration section that states, in the event that a business moves outside of Shorewood within 6 months, the village reserves the right to ask for the money back. That way it's not automatic, but if it's something that we see as they took our money and they ran, we reserve the right to come back. And I guess if there's no second,
David, I think seconded and muted.
Yeah, I'll second that, yeah.
All right, we have a motion and a second. And again, just I like clarity. Bart, if you could read that back to us.
Yep, so I have moves to amend by adding within the administration section that in the event a business moves outside of Shorewood within 6 months, the village reserves the right to ask for the money back.
Is there any discussion on that item?
Can I just speak in favor of my own motion? It's not automatic, but if we see something that we feel like business took advantage of the program and then moved outside of Shorewood, we would reserve the right to request the funds back. So you're right. I think you're completely right, Peter, that there are so many things that go into whether a business moves, and we can't anticipate that. And maybe it's just something where it was a move that happened and had to happen for business reasons. But we can look at it on a case by case basis.
Can I, Wes, I think when you first brought this up, you said ask the business to stipulate that if they moved, they would pay it back. I don't know how you could tell me. Is that legally binding if they signed something? What does that mean to stipulate? Would that work?
Yeah, my motion is a little softer than that. If they stipulated in the agreement that when they move, they would pay it back. But I see Peter's point, which is there's a lot of reasons for moving, and some might be situations in which the village didn't feel it appropriate to ask for the money back. Others might be situations in which the village wanted to ask for the money back. This would be reserving our right to ask for the money back and putting the business on notice. So it's a softer version of what you said.
And I think that's, to me, this is just more, if you will, visibility when they first fill it out, that there is some understanding when they get the money that that's an expectation. Because again, it's not enforceable. If in fact they do that, they could leave and we'll try. And I don't know, so will there be expectation that village staff will pursue them to the ends of the earth to try and get that money from them? Should they leave? To what extent are we expecting staff to go to get that money back. So to me, the value of that, of your amendment, this addition, is just, I guess, visibility up front to business owners, to not, I don't know, to not move, or if you do, we might be coming asking for it.
Yeah, that's what it's really meant to create, the kind of almost the expectation, hey, we expect you to remain in Shorewood when you get these funds. It doesn't mean that the staff's going to go around and do an audit every week or every month or every 2 months. We just reserve the right, and we're making them aware that there's that expectation there. Sorry, I have no shades on these windows. The sun's directly in my eye.
I can't see you, so I'm sorry. This might be an unfair question, and please let me know what it is, but particularly specifically for Trustee Amenta and Trustee Warren, how do I say that? I don't know how to even ask. I feel like, is this, in your personal opinion, do you believe this amendment, this aspect of it, would be an important component for the village board's consideration? Again, I know that's not a very fair question. You've both obviously expressed it's a concern for you two and your village board members, so that tells me that 2 of the board members think it's important. So I'll put that out there. If you don't feel like answering, I totally understand, but I just thought I'd ask it.
I can take the first shot at it. I think so. Trustee Amenta referenced it correctly. When we go around and talk to people, they'll ask, one of the questions that will come up in our conversations is, will businesses move? What if they move? And while this doesn't give us the automatic refund of what we're paying out, it does put in place a recognition within the program that, hey, there's an expectation that you stay here. And I think that just, in talking to constituents, even if it's something where we won't necessarily enforce this every time a business moves, because as you say, Peter, it really depends on the circumstances, and sometimes, businesses do move. I fully recognize that. It's something where we say, we put right in the text of the agreement that we reserve the right, that's the expectation that you take this money. We want you to stay here. We want you to stay in Shorewood. We want you to be in Shorewood. We're trying to support you here in Shorewood. I think that's a good thing.
Could I add? This is Mike. I'm willing to support that amendment that Trustee Warren is proposing.
Great. Thank you, Mike. Okay. Any other discussion on that amendment? Okay.
As long as if it's just simply the village reserves the right, I guess those specific guidelines need to be discussed right now before we put that in there, unless it's if this is all public record. So if somebody sees this and somebody moved, what's the point of saying we reserve the right to collect if you leave, if that's not our intention to collect if you leave? And there's too many variables in regards to why a business might leave, and it could be for their own survival to move into a lower cost rental or something like that. So asking for it back, it's no different than a facade grant. If the business goes out of it, if they go out of business, the facade grant was for nothing as well, and we've seen that. This is a different reason for giving this money out. So I'm not so sure. An unenforceable sort of warning, an eligible business should be entitled to the criteria that are established in the application. So that's just my thought.
Yeah, I'm unclear on the amendment. So it says the village may request the funds back if the business moves.
Sorry, I'm getting more feedback. Can everybody other than David or Trustee Amenta make sure they're muted?
So the amendment is that the village may request the funds back, but is that correct?
Reserves the right to request the funds back, I believe, is the language of the amendment.
Yeah, I mean, if we don't put, I think if we include that in the agreement and they sign that as part of the agreement, I mean, I'm curious too. I mean, if we were to try to collect, I mean, how would that be something that we could go to court and say they owe us this money back, even small claims court, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, sorry, David.
No, I mean, if it's,
Yeah, I mean, I think,
go ahead.
no, I think that's exactly right. I mean, you could, if you don't put it in there, you have no recourse in the event that they move. If you say you may request it back, then if they move and you feel like the funds have been misused or misappropriated in some way, you could rely on that to say, hey, here it is. We said if you move, we may request the funds back. We're not requesting the funds back. I don't know that you'd ever get to court. It might just be as simple as a letter. And I don't know that we need to kind of outline that whole process here, but my intention is just to give us the option in the event that we feel there's been some sort of misappropriation or misuse of the funds, to assist in moving to a different location. Peter Desi, I totally see your point that sometimes businesses need to move. Sometimes it makes perfect economic sense. I am not envisioning this being deployed for that purpose. I'm envisioning it more as taking the money and running, which I don't think is going to happen here, but I think it's important to kind of note the expectations of the agreement. It's more kind of a policy expectation as we roll out this program. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm supportive of the program. I'd like to have this in there, but at the end of the day, I am supportive of the program.
If there was something in there that if the business voluntarily leaves the village has the right, rather than just if they leave. If they have no choice for their own survival, the voluntarily leaving could be looked at.
What is voluntarily? Yeah, how do we define?
They're taking the money just to be able to pack up and leave, I guess. That's why.
Yep, that was in my original motion. I actually should have been included in this motion. Voluntarily is part of how I'm envisioning this.
Trustee Warren, can I ask, just in your discussion right there with Trustee Amenta, are you, with your legal hat on, are you saying that if we don't have anything in the application document that references some element of our right of recourse in this event, that we therefore have no right of recourse?
I mean, I think if we're not, again, I need to, like, this is like a robot. I cannot provide legal advice to the village, but
yes, correct.
I would say if it's not within the bounds of the contract, you can't say you violated some term of the contract by moving. I think it weakens our position substantially if we feel like they took the money and ran. And again, I don't think businesses are going to do this, but I would like it in there as additional protection. But I mean, you could probably make an argument on kind of a public policy grounds or some sort of grounds like that they shouldn't have done that. But I don't know if I think that's probably a loser argument at the end of the day. But if you do have something within the document where we do have the option to ask for the money back, that substantially strengthens your position from a legal perspective. Again, I do not anticipate deploying this often, if at all. I just think it's a good protection to have in there. I think it is something that will come up as we discuss this program with our constituents.
Hey, Peter, this is John.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to go on record. I think I can get on board with Leslie's amendment here. I think the changes are good. I understand why specifically the two trustees are behind this. I get it. So I think this makes sense. I don't think it's a big thing to add, and I would be in favor of it.
Okay, thank you. All right, if there's no other discussion, then do we need to have it read back, or does everybody understand what Trustee Warren's amendment is? Maybe, all right, Bart, that was a stupid question on my part, sorry. Logistically, it's hard to do. Would you just read it back for us so we understand the amendment?
Let me make sure I got the right one here. Moves to amend by adding within the administration section that in the event that a business moves outside of Shorewood within 6, the village reserves the right to ask for the money back.
Okay. All those in favor?
And that has to be included in the agreement, just so everybody understands that they sign.
The signed application process, correct, yes. So the amendment, I guess, should say that the, right, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I meant to.
Okay, all those in favor, and we'll do, Rebecca will do a roll call. Bart, were you going to say something? You look like you were going to.
Nope.
No, okay.
Nope,
All right.
that's it.
Michael Dawson,
Aye.
And you might be,
Dusty Loreno,
Aye.
Peter Hammond,
aye.
John Kraus,
Aye.
Joe Lesage,
I see his room. I don't see him.
Oh, hold on. I'm here. Sorry.
we're
I'm
voting on the
sorry.
amendment.
Can you hear me?
No,
Yes,
okay,
we
yes.
can.
You can hear you.
I'm solo parenting. I have to feed the kids. I am in favor. Aye.
Thank you, sir.
Trustee Amenta,
Aye.
Trustee Warren.
Aye.
Okay, so that was to vote on the amendment.
Correct. Okay, now we have a motion and a second on the original motion of the approval of the Emergency Business Assistance Program. I have a motion and a second.
Can I propose, I'm having a hard time with this because I do feel strongly that we should have some preference in here for women and minority businesses. And that is something that the Human Relations Commission has brought up as a priority and pointed out to the village, and that I think is a value of most, if not all, of the village board. But I'm struggling a little bit because I'm not sure how, we're not really assigning preference, or I mean, it's just kind of an equal thing based on your rent. So yeah, I guess if there's a situation where there's not enough money to fund, if there's enough money to fund everybody and all the requests, that would be one situation. If it gets to where we don't have enough and we're going to have, everyone's only going to get 75% of what they ask, can I propose that in that situation that women and minority owned businesses get a preference in terms of the amount? So I'm going to make
That's impossible to try and administer through this program. I just don't see, I understand where you're going with this, but you're adding too much complexity at this point.
From a preference, were you thinking like sort of a percentage?
Yeah, like
higher?
Like if I applied, not that I mean, I do work from home, but I suppose I'm not eligible. But let's say I had an office and I applied, and we had too many applications for the money, so everyone was going to only get 50% instead of their entire amount. That at that point we would say, look, we're going to fund women and minority businesses at 100%. And then we're going to split the rest with everybody else. So, I mean, if we have enough for everybody, then the women minority thing doesn't come into it. But if we don't have enough, that we do tip the scales a little bit more towards our women and minority owned businesses. So I just want to throw that out there. We don't have to have a lot of debate about it. I just want to at least have made the proposal so it's out there. Yeah. I'm not sure I can support this if there's not, because I feel there's a lot of, in particular, women sole proprietorships run by women, and that such as hairstylists that have a very, very thin margin, and I think they are some of them, many that I know are single moms, And I just feel like I just feel like I have to, make that plea, whether the rest of CDA agrees or not, is up to you. But so I'm gonna make that amendment.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have I think everybody's clear on the amendment. Do I have a second on that?
What's the amendment exactly?
So in the case that there's insufficient funds to fund all grant requests, then let's just say priority or full funding will be given to woman and minority-owned businesses. Let's say it that way. Is that clear?
Yes.
Yeah.
So from an input,
Can I just a point of order. Obviously, policy-wise, I totally agree that agree with encouraging women and minority-owned businesses. I'm very supportive of diversity. Obviously throughout our business community. My concern here, and this is the point of order, is I don't know what the legal parameters are around grant programs. Again, putting my my day job hat on a little bit, even though I can't give advice to the village. This might be something where we want to check with Nathan prior to the board meeting, assuming that this passes through prior to the board meeting on Monday, and make the tweak there if we can. I would worry about, and Rebecca maybe you can help me with this, I wouldn't want to cross any lines from a legal regulatory perspective.
And Rebecca, were you going to make a
Can we
comment?
just say, see if there's any seconds to this and then maybe move on?
Yes, I think we were all contemplating the second, because it is a very good, it's a very good comment and statement and objective. And I think we're all struggling with how do we do it? How do we implement it?
Well, I mean, it's really a question of should there be a preference? Should there be a preference or not? Or should we just say it's your rent and and it's everybody's 2 months rent and that's it? And yeah, I mean, it's a policy question, and Wes is right. I mean, I'll bring this up at the board, but I know if I vote no, I'm going to be painted as I'm anti-business, which is not the case. I support doing something. I support this program, and I feel very strongly that there's a ton of businesses that I really want to see make it and be here for Shorewood, especially the ones that I feel are really define our business district. So, although, I mean, it's absolutely untrue, but I know that's how it's going to be painted and I'm going to be accused of it. And I just want to be clear that without some kind of, I am going to vote no at this point without some kind of preference, just because that's my, that's where I'm coming from. And
yep, absolutely, absolutely. Rebecca?
My problem with this is that you're assuming all women and minority-owned businesses need preference, and I don't see where that. I just don't. It's picking winners and losers again, and making huge assumptions, black and white assumptions on who's successful and who isn't. It just doesn't. I don't know. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
We also don't have a second yet for this motion.
Yes, I think Rebecca, were you going to?
I don't think we're getting one.
Rebecca?
I was trying to clarify.
Yes.
So from an administrative perspective, are you suggesting, David, because I'm trying to be clear in my mind in terms of how we could possibly administer this.
Trying to help the village.
Are you suggesting that those
Can
women
everybody mute their lines, please?
We lost our fire.
Joe, can you mute your line?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yep.
Are you suggesting that we would fund women and minority businesses first to the maximum they were permitted under the eligibility criteria, and then all other businesses would be funded and if needed, be prorated based upon the remaining that were left.
Right.
Okay, I'm just trying to structure it like when this is coming in, how if I'm Steph and I'm Mark, you know, that seems manageable. I don't have a specific answer to Trustee Warren's question from a legal perspective, but I'd be happy to follow up on it if this is something that is in the interest of the CDA.
Yeah, I mean, I sorry to jump in. I would like you to, I'm not going to second the motion, but I'd like you to, Rebecca, if you could follow up on it, because this is something that I certainly would like to discuss further, but I don't want to cross any lines that we can't cross.
Sure, will do.
Well, because there can be like an LLC, like a business could be owned by an LLC with multiple owners, and is it minority? And we don't have a certification for minority or women-owned business. But how about if I say if it is sole proprietorship owned by a minority or woman-owned business? So, because I'm really trying to target, so that I guess a sole proprietorship would be the easiest. That way we don't have to get into corporate ownership and, certifying the businesses, the ownership of businesses and stuff like that.
Okay. And Wesley, does that reflect, are you in agreement with how that's posed to the village attorney as a question under sole proprietorship?
Yeah. Sorry. Can you hear me? Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah. I think okay. Yeah, I think that. Yeah, that I'd like to post. Again, I'm not going to second the motion tonight, but I'd like that question posted to the village attorney. We can bring it back for discussion on Monday, because obviously from a policy position, this is something that diversity of business and diversity in business is something I very much support.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. All right, so there was no second to that motion, so the amendment fails. And so we were back to the original consideration of the Emergency Business Assistance Program. I had a motion and a second. We have had discussion, excellent discussion. All those in favor, Rebecca, if you would go around again, roll call.
Yes. Michael Dawson.
Aye.
Dusty Lorino.
Aye.
Peter Hammond.
Aye.
John Kraus.
Aye.
Joe Lesage.
Aye.
Trustee Amenta.
No.
Trustee Warren.
Aye.
All right, so motion passes. Thank you, everybody. All right, then, so the other two items we need to address are amending the MOU between the village and the CDA. Just the way it's written right now is very specific, so we need to modify that basically to allow us to reallocate funds from the facade program and from the general CDA activity bucket to this emergency assistance program, to allow us to do that, to allow to fund the program that we just agreed to do. So, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Excellent. Rebecca, if you will go around roll call on that one.
Sorry about that. Need to unmute. Michael Dawson.
Aye.
Dusty Lorino.
Aye.
Peter Hammond.
Aye.
John Kraus.
Aye.
Joe Lesage.
Aye.
Trustee Amenta.
No.
Trustee Warren.
Aye.
All right. That motion passes, and then so there were two considerations here. That was for the, I don't know, did I do both there? I'm not sure. Sorry about that. Should I do the other one as well? I think that was for the facade program reallocation. Now let's do the general CDA activity funds. Same again, it's the same change to the MOU to allow us to take the 90,000 from the general funds into this bucket to get us to the 300,000. So do I have a motion to do that?
I so move.
Second?
Second.
Excellent. All right. Rebecca, take us around again.
Michael Dawson,
Aye.
Dusty Loreno,
Aye.
Peter Hammond,
Aye.
John Kraus,
Aye.
Joe Lesage,
Aye.
Trustee Amenta,
No.
Trustee Warren.
Aye.
All right, that motion passes as well. Okay, well, I would just like to say personally, I thank you all for your work on this. This is, I really appreciate the conversation. I think we got to a good place here, and I'm hopeful the village board, we can get the village board to approve this as well, and we can move forward with, I know what everybody, the 30,000 foot goal of everybody, what everybody wants to do here. So again, thank you all for this. And if there's no other business, I would move to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
Anybody not want to adjourn? All right. Thank you all so much, and thank you to the public that participated in this. And again, any questions, direct them to me or to village staff. Happy to answer anything that we can. And again, thank you everybody very, very much.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Have a good night.
Night.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Bye.